About 2 months ago, my older brother and I ended up having a really big argument at a family dinner. To be honest, this isn't completely out of the blue. He's always carried some jealousy towards me ever since we were kids. It's like no matter what I do, he finds a way to turn it into a problem. That night, things blew up because he got upset that I had taken on a new client for our family business without asking him first. He brought it up right there at the dinner table in front of everyone, and it quickly turned into a tense and uncomfortable situation. For some background, I actually have two brothers, one older, one younger, and all three of us work for my dad in his family business. The business isn't just a job for us, it's been part of our lives for as long as I can remember. From a young age, we were raised and trained with the idea that one day one of us would be the ones running things when my dad eventually steps back. Every decision we make, big or small, feels like it carries extra weight because it's not only about work, it's also about family and about who might eventually take over. My older brother has always carried this idea that just because he's the firstborn, he should automatically be the one to take over when my dad steps down. It's clear he believes being the oldest makes him the natural choice. The thing is, that's not really how it works. He's not as sharp when it comes to business decisions, and people can see that. I don't mean to sound arrogant, but I've always had more of my dad's instincts. I think more like him, I work like him, and I understand the business side of things in a way that feels natural to me. Between the three of us, it's pretty obvious I'm the one who handles things best. Even my brothers and most of the family know it. I don't just sit in a comfortable office all day, pushing papers around. I'm out there doing the real work that keeps the family business alive. I meet with clients face to face, I recruit new talent, I sit in on business meetings, and I chase down new investors. That's how my dad always did it, and I've naturally followed in his footsteps. One of my biggest strengths, like him, is being able to connect with people. I make friends easily, I build trust, and I don't just promise results. I actually deliver on time every time. Over the years, that's made a huge difference. A big part of our business growth comes from the clients I've personally brought in and secured. That's not me exaggerating, it's just the truth. The company wouldn't be where it is today if I hadn't been out there expanding our reach the way I have. My dad sees the work I put in and he makes it clear he appreciates it. He praises me often, and while that feels good, it also makes things worse between me and my brothers. They can't stand it. My older brother, especially, seems to take every word of praise as an attack on him. Instead of trying to prove himself through hard work, he channels that frustration into picking fights with me. It's like his go-to response. My younger brother doesn't really care about proving himself or carrying the weight of the business. He's just content with collecting his paycheck, putting in the bare minimum effort. As long as he's getting paid, he's satisfied. But here's the problem. He still looks up to my older brother, almost blindly. So most of the time he takes his side. When the two of them are together, they end up ganging up on me. They'll tease me, try to undermine me, and make it seem like I'm the problem. It's been this way for as long as I can remember. Me pulling more weight, my dad noticing it, and my brothers resenting me for it. At that dinner, things blew up because my older brother was furious that I had brought in another client and signed them without running it by him first. He acted like I had crossed some line, even though the truth is he and I hold the same position in the business. I reminded him of that right there at the table. I don't need his permission to make decisions. I had done everything properly. I'd researched the client, run a full background check, and made sure they were legitimate. On top of that, this wasn't just any client, this was a millionaire, someone with the kind of money and connections that could take our revenue to another level. In other words, it was exactly the kind of move my dad would have made and exactly the kind of client our business needed. My brothers should have been happy about this instead of trying to pick a fight. Landing a millionaire client is something that benefits all of us, not just me. Instead, my older brother twisted it into another opportunity to attack me. He started raising his voice, telling me I had no respect for him, that I was stepping out of line, and that because he's the oldest, he should be the one making the final calls about which clients we accept. It was the same tired argument he's been holding on to for years, that age alone makes him more qualified. Of course, my younger brother jumped in right away to back him up. He just sided with him like he always does, and meanwhile I wasn't about to sit there and let both of them pile on me for doing the work they weren't doing themselves. So I told them straight. They needed to get off their high horses and start putting in the effort to actually bring clients in, instead of wasting energy fighting with me over the ones I secure. At that point, my dad stepped in. He was clearly fed up with the bickering and told my brothers point blank that they needed to stop wasting time being bitter and start proving themselves by actually delivering results, the way I've been doing. He said these fights were pointless and only made them look worse, not me. My older brother's face turned bright red. You could see the embarrassment written all over him, especially with the rest of the family sitting there in silence watching. For me, there was this small sense of vindication. My younger brother didn't have much to say either. After that moment, the mood at the table shifted. My older brother barely spoke for the rest of the night, which honestly was a good thing. Later that night, when dinner was finally over and we were all heading out of our parents' place, my older brother made sure to get the last word in. As we were walking out, he turned to me and said, almost spitting the words, that he wished he could kick me out of the family business because in his eyes, I'm not a team player like the rest of them. Before I could even respond or defend myself, he jumped into his car, slammed the door, and drove off. I was left standing there, stunned, replaying his words in my head. Just 2 days after that blow-up at dinner, everything in our family turned upside down. My dad got into a serious car accident. Thankfully, he survived, but his injuries were bad enough that he had to be bedridden for recovery. With him suddenly out of the picture at work, that's when my older brother saw his opening. Almost overnight, he started carrying himself like he had been appointed acting supervisor, especially over me. He was hovering, nitpicking, trying to control every move I made. He'd stand over my shoulder, question decisions that were well within my responsibilities, and talk to me as if I was some intern who didn't know what they were doing. It wasn't about helping the business, it was about trying to assert himself as the one in charge now that Dad wasn't around. The more he tried to play boss, the more it became clear he was targeting me specifically, as if keeping me in check was his main job. I did try to talk to my dad about what was happening, but the timing couldn't have been worse. He was still recovering from the accident and clearly not in the right state of mind to deal with the tension between me and my older brother, even though I wanted his guidance and support. I quickly realized he wasn't ready to handle the situation. After that, things at the business only got worse. My brothers kept up their bullying, and it felt like there was no escape. Whenever I was meeting with clients, they would barge into the room uninvited, interrupting the conversation and undermining my authority. During meetings with our staff, they'd talk over me, dismiss my suggestions, and make it clear they didn't respect my role. It wasn't just about challenging decisions, it was about putting me down in front of others, trying to make me look incompetent or inexperienced. Every day became a struggle to get any real work done. while constantly defending myself. It felt like they were deliberately making my life miserable, as if their goal was to make me question whether I even belonged in the business at all. Then, about a month ago, my older brother walked into my office and told me that he was not happy with my work performance lately. He went on to say that he was putting me on probation and that eventually I would be laid off because of my supposed lack of interest in the family business. It was shocking. The absurdity of it hit me immediately. I'm the one who's been landing clients, growing the business, and keeping things running smoothly while Dad was recovering, and now he's accusing me of not caring? It felt like a cruel joke. Lack of interest in the family business? What was he even talking about? I reminded him that he had no authority to put me on probation, that this wasn't his decision to make. But he just smirked and told me he had already spoken with the company lawyers. According to some guidelines Dad set up years ago, he had discovered a loophole. Apparently, if he and my younger brother, both of whom also held management positions like me, agreed that I wasn't performing properly, then technically, under those old rules, they could put me on probation and then could eventually lay me off. I couldn't help but scoff at him. I told him flat out that Dad would never allow something like this to happen, but instead of backing down, my older brother just smiled, almost smugly, and reminded me that Dad was too sick to handle the business right now. That meant in his mind it was entirely up to him and my younger brother to decide whatever they wanted. I felt my blood boil. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I yelled at him, telling him that I knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't about work or performance, it was pure jealousy. That's all it had ever been. This was exactly what he had wanted all along, to push me out of the family business so he and my younger brother wouldn't have to feel guilty for never bringing in clients, never doing half the work I do, and never really carrying their weight. I reminded him that he was making a huge mistake by underestimating me. I told him that all his scheming and threats wouldn't change the fact that I was more capable and committed than either of them. But he sneered and said that I was just a woman and didn't really belong in the family business with them. He made it clear he thought there was nothing I could do to stop him, that I had no power in this fight. I tried to go talk to my dad about this, hoping that he could step in, but my mom wouldn't let me see him. She told me I shouldn't bother him with this useless stuff. It was obvious she favored my brother over me, as she always had, and this time was no different. The thing is, this wasn't trivial. It was urgent. I needed to talk to my dad because the situation wasn't just a minor disagreement, it was threatening my place in the family business. However, my mom reminded me that Dad was still recovering from the accident and didn't need the mental stress of helping me sort out a silly problem with my brothers. She added almost coldly that I was a big girl and should learn to handle my own issues. It was frustrating and hurtful. Instead of support, I was being told to stand alone while my brothers were actively trying to push me out. I felt deeply upset that my own mother was refusing to back me up. I couldn't really blame my dad for any of this at the time because he was unaware and was genuinely focused on recovering from the accident. Since that day, I've tried everything I could think of to navigate the situation, to work around my brother's constant bullying and keep the business running smoothly. But no matter what I did, my brothers found ways to make my life miserable. This week I finally reached my breaking point. My younger brother went too far and humiliated me in front of a potential client, calling me over-emotional during a meeting. That was the moment I realized I couldn't just keep letting this happen without doing something about it. You see, my younger brother brought in a potential client that he wanted us on board with. However, this client was asking us to take on their project with added discounts that would actually make the deal a loss for the company. I refused because from a business standpoint, it didn't make sense. The workload was huge, the compensation was too low, and it would have hurt the company's bottom line. But my younger brother took my refusal personally. Instead of backing me up or understanding that I was protecting the business, he decided to attack me in front of the client. Right there, in front of the client, he called me over-emotional and even asked if I was on my period, which is why I was acting up. It was humiliating, unprofessional, and completely unnecessary. I could feel the client's eyes on us, and I could tell it was making me look bad, even though I was the one making the rational, responsible call. I took a deep breath and asked him as calmly as I could what my periods had to do with this situation. His response was infuriating. He basically shrugged and said I was just being a tight ass for no reason, instead of happily agreeing to the client's terms. It was absurd. I was trying to protect the business, and here he was mocking me with some personal insult. I realized right then that continuing the argument in front of the client would only make things worse, so I excused myself from the room. I asked my younger brother to speak to me privately instead. I didn't want to escalate things in front of the client or give the impression that our company couldn't handle disagreements professionally. But inside, I was boiling. This wasn't just a disagreement about business terms. It was another example of how relentless my brothers had become in trying to undermine me. I honestly thought that if I spoke to my younger brother privately, he might be able to understand my point of view. I hoped that, away from the client, I could explain why accepting the terms would have been a loss for the company and why I had made the decision I did. But instead of listening, he just escalated the situation. He started insulting me even more, making it clear he had no interest in hearing my reasoning. He told me flat out that he was going to take on this client whether I liked it or not. Then he went further, saying that I was a nobody and that my opinions didn't matter, so I should just keep quiet and stay out of his way. It was a crushing mix of arrogance and disrespect, and it made me realize just how little regard they had for my role, my judgment, and my contribution to the business. That night, when I finally got home, I just broke down for the first time. All the frustration, anger, and exhaustion I'd been holding in came pouring out. I realized I had been mentally drained for weeks or maybe months, and I hadn't allowed myself to admit it. I've been trying to stay strong, standing up to my brothers, defending my work, proving myself every single day, but it's exhausting. What makes it even worse is that so much of this is tied to something I can't change: my gender. I'm constantly being put down simply because I'm a woman in the family business, and that jealousy from my brothers is relentless. Every day at the office feels like a battle, and it's sucking the life out of me. It's the sense that no matter what I do, I have to fight just to be recognized, respected, and treated fairly. This is why, for the first time in my life, I'm seriously thinking about leaving the family business. I know it might sound like I'm giving up, but the truth is, I'm just so tired of being trapped in this toxic situation. Every day has become a battle with my brothers, and no matter what I do, it feels like I can't get a break. I've tried standing my ground, defending my work, proving myself, but the constant undermining and jealousy are wearing me down. I also know that if my parents, especially my dad, find out I'm considering leaving, they won't be happy. That thought makes me feel guilty because I know how much the business means to them and how much they've invested in us running it. But at the same time, I can't ignore how miserable this environment has made me. It's like I'm stuck between honoring my family's expectations and protecting my own mental health. And right now, that balance feels impossible. So Reddit, AITA for thinking of walking away from my family business? Update 1. Just for your information, the staff at the company all genuinely like and respect me. I've always spent more time with them than either of my brothers, checking in, mentoring, making sure things run smoothly. That's one of the things I take pride in. It's not just about managing the business, it's about supporting the people who make it work. Unfortunately, my brothers aren't just difficult with me, they're also harsh and disrespectful toward the staff. They bark orders, undermine decisions, and create unnecessary tension, which has dragged down the entire office atmosphere. Since Dad has been out of the office recovering, the overall vibe has completely deteriorated. The energy, motivation, and morale that once existed are now replaced by fear, frustration, and resentment. It's exhausting trying to keep things afloat while dealing with both their toxic behavior and the negative impact it's having on everyone else. For everyone asking for details about my dad's injuries, he's recovering from a spinal injury he suffered in the accident. That's why he hasn't been able to come to the office at all. According to the doctors, he was extremely lucky to have survived the crash, but the impact did serious damage to his spine. We do visit him, but only for an hour or two at a time because he can't sit up straight for long periods. His recovery is happening, but it's very slow, and it's clear he's still dealing with a lot of pain and limitations. On top of everything, my mom refuses to let any of us, my brothers or me, talk to Dad about the business. She insists it would add more stress to his recovery, and she's very strict about enforcing that. I love my dad, and I genuinely worry about his health. So I've respected her wishes and stayed silent in front of him about what my brothers have been putting me through. I have to admit, I kind of agree with a lot of the comments here suggesting that maybe my two brothers and even my mom are deliberately trying to push me out of the business. It's a painful thought, but when I step back and look at how they've treated me, it almost makes sense. Between the constant bullying, the public humiliations, the threats of probation, and my mother refusing to support me or let me talk to Dad, it feels like they're all working together to kick me out. These are the people who are supposed to have my back. Yet they seem determined to undermine me at every turn. And the sadder part is realizing that there may not even be a rational explanation beyond jealousy and control. That realization is what makes everything feel heavier, like I'm not just fighting for my role in the business, but also for respect and recognition from my own family. Update 2. It's been a week since my last update. After a lot of thinking and weighing everything, I finally made a decision. I'm leaving the family business. This hasn't been easy, and it doesn't feel like giving up. It feels like protecting myself and my sanity. I've spoken with a lawyer, and according to the guidelines in my contract, I'm legally allowed to walk away after cashing out my shares in the business. That gives me some security and a clean exit, which is really important. On top of that, I've quietly reached out to my clients, the ones I've built relationships with over the years, and they're all willing to follow me. That part gives me hope. My work and reputation means something beyond the family business, and I know I can continue to build my career on my own terms. It's a big step, but after everything that's happened, the constant bullying, the lack of support, and the toxic environment, it feels like the right one. Right now, I'm in the process of setting up a private firm from my home. I know it's going to be challenging at first. Starting a business from scratch never comes easy. But I'm motivated and ready to put in the work. The good news is that some of the staff members I built strong relationships with over the years are willing to even come with me. That makes things a lot easier because I won't be starting entirely alone. I haven't told my brothers a single word about any of this. For now, I'm keeping up the appearance that everything is normal at the family business, acting as if it's business as usual. Behind the scenes, though, I'm quietly building my own path, laying the groundwork for my company. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update. I finally left the family business. I have to admit, it was almost comical to see the expressions on my brothers' faces when I submitted my resignation letter to HR. You could literally see their shock and disbelief. It was like they hadn't even considered that I would actually follow through. Of course, they couldn't just let it go quietly. Both of them barged into my office while I was packing up my things. My older brother immediately started yelling, accusing me of backstabbing them and betraying the family. He was red in the face and frantic, trying to make it sound like I was doing something immoral. Meanwhile, my younger brother kept whining, insisting that I just couldn't leave them like this, that the business would collapse without me, which was true. They were nothing without me, and this is exactly why they should have treated me well when they had the chance. I just smiled at both of them and calmly pointed out that I very much could leave, that it was my decision whether or not to stay in the business. I reminded them that they had spent a month putting me on probation and even threatened to fire me, and now I had done them a favor by making their job easier. I was leaving on my own terms. Now, no matter what they tried, they couldn't bully me, intimidate me, or undermine me anymore. I was finally free from all the toxic behavior, from being belittled for my gender and from the constant undermining that had made every day at work feel like a battle. My older brother immediately erupted, yelling that I had made a rash decision and insisting that this was all just an elaborate prank on me. He went on trying to explain that he and my younger brother had only planned to fake layoff me, supposedly just to scare me into listening to them. According to him, they would never have actually let me go in reality. It was all meant as some sort of twisted lesson. I shook my head and told him I was done playing their mind games. I wasn't going to be their punching bag any longer. If they wanted the family business all to themselves, fine, they could have it. I made it clear I wasn't leaving alone. All the clients I'd built relationships with over the years would be leaving too. These clients trusted me and were frustrated with how my brothers had been running things lately. I told them that if they had a problem with that, they were welcome to sue, but then they would have to go through my dad, who is the owner. And I knew for a fact my dad would never take legal action against me. Instead, he would be extremely upset and disappointed by the dirty tricks my brother played on me to push me out of the family business. Hearing this, my older brother completely lost it and started throwing a fit. My younger brother chimed in, pointing out that my client list basically made up almost their entire business and revenue. I looked at them both and said, "Exactly. Now you know exactly what I brought to the table. I was never a nobody. I was literally the backbone of this business, and you took me for granted. Now enjoy the downfall." My brothers kept protesting, but I didn't bother engaging or arguing anymore. I just packed up the rest of my things and walked out. As expected, I started getting calls from my mother soon after, probably because my brothers had already informed her about my decision. She was calling only to intervene, trying to convince me to stop from resigning. But I didn't answer a single call. At that point, I knew I had made the right choice, and I wasn't going to let anyone pressure me into staying in a situation that had been toxic for far too long. For the first time in years, I feel truly free. It's like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders, and the constant tension and fear I carried at the family business are finally gone. I don't feel scared anymore. I don't feel trapped. Instead, I feel energized and motivated. I'm looking forward to starting and growing my own business, something that's entirely mine, built on my own terms, and something no one can ever take away from me. It's empowering to know that for the first time, my hard work and vision will belong entirely to me. Once my dad recovers fully, which he slowly will, I plan to let him know about my decision. I'm confident he will respect it because, unlike everyone else, he truly loves me and understands what I'm capable of. He's always recognized my strengths and my dedication, and I know he'll see that leaving the family business isn't about giving up. It's about taking control of my own future. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.